How's it going, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. We're going to get started really soon here. We got a great presentation for everyone today. Good morning, everyone. We got about one more minute. We're going to let folks join us. We're super excited to give this amazing presentation to everyone today. So we'll get started really soon here. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, everyone. We got an amazing presentation for everyone today. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with introductions. My name's Ryan Flacco Rising. I'm a formerly incarcerated student in the sociology department here at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I'm also the Underground Scholars program coordinator here, which is called the Gaucho Underground Scholars program. And so the mission of the Underground Scholars Santa Barbara is to provide peer-driven support, assistance, and guidance to formerly incarcerated and system-impacted University of California Santa Barbara students who are adapting to the challenges of acclimating to the university while striving towards successful community and academic reintegration. It is our aim to connect formerly incarcerated UC Santa Barbara students with the resources and information that may help to increase those students' prospects of success. And I'm here today with my partner, and here she is.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lysandra Barrera Rising. I'm a student at Santa Barbara City College. I'm also an Underground Scholars Ambassador for Santa Barbara City College. It's my second year being an ambassador, and I'm also a sociology major. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm gonna read poetry that a little bit of a background. I'm formerly incarcerated as well, system impacted mostly. I'm gonna read a poem that I wrote when I was in intensive inpatient treatment here, or it was in San Diego. I was there for about 6 months. I'm going to kick it off with a poem, and then after I'm going to read an article that just got published about my story just recently. And also, please excuse me, but I'm getting ready for transfer, for UC transfer. So I have an important meeting today that I couldn't reschedule. So right after this, I'll pass it back to my partner. So I'm going to start off my poem. This is the one I wrote while I was, like I said, as I mentioned, when I was in inpatient rehabilitation. It's called The Gloomy Days. Gloomy days seem so dreadful and long. No life outside, it's dark, and birds aren't singing their favorite song. I try and look beyond the rain, asking God to come through and make me sane. Once he receives my message, the fog clears in my head. He starts answering my prayers by giving me blessings. He heard what I said. The clouds break, it's less gray. My world brightens, I see his rays. The light that shines from up above is stronger than any darkness that's trying to ransom my love. I fought through these cold storms. Now I want that sunshine, comfortable and warm. Gloomy days are seized, kidnapped with my disease. So my article that just came out recently covers my whole story too. I was inside rehab for a very out of control painkiller addiction. And I'm going to talk about it here in my article. At an early age, my parents instilled morals, values, and cultural traditions in me that I've held dear to my heart, especially throughout my journey. They used to emphasize the importance of getting an education and how it would benefit me for better opportunities in the future. I enjoyed school, I was involved with sports, and the community I grew up in was very tight-knit. My plans had always been to accomplish college after high school, but things started to change for me at about 13 years old. I still remember the day my mother took me to the doctor. It was Kaiser Permanente for mild aches and pains I was getting from the strenuous routines and stunts I was performing during cheerleading. That year, the year 2000, came with so much confusion and uncertainty, but nothing prepared us for the real danger that was just around the corner. The introduction of narcotic painkillers that hit the market and poured into the hands of children, creating an epidemic of destruction, disease, and death, especially for young athletes who were aspiring to be something one day. My doctor was my first legal drug dealer. He gave me prescriptions for hydrocodone and muscle relaxers. There wasn't any information, resources, or knowledge yet about these new drugs that were considered highly effective. And we did not know that by consuming these pills every day, we were naturally building a tolerance that ultimately led us to becoming addicted. But all we knew was that we trusted our healthcare system, which failed us. I stayed in school, continued cheerleading, and maintained mediocre grades, but I noticed an aggressive shift in my behavior when I did not have my painkillers. This is what we call now withdrawal. My senior year in high school was supposed to be magical and memorable. It was definitely memorable, but not like this. One night after mixing painkillers with alcohol, I made the irresponsible decision to drive a friend home, and I ended up crashing my friend's car in the middle of a field of orange groves. I woke up hours later, handcuffed to a gurney, having been cited for driving under the influence while barefoot and covered with blood. Suddenly, my senior year activities included satisfying my terms of probation, random drug tests, and meeting with my new probation officer. I was now involved in the criminal justice system that would be part of my life for the next decade. I tried getting rid of this habit on my own, but I realized I needed extreme rehabilitation. Then at the age of 22, I had a baby daughter, until my mother called Child Protective Services and had her removed from my custody when she was 11 months old. I was trapped in the same neighborhood that accepted my demons, but I always wanted better for myself. I was constantly going to jail, failing drug tests, and doing nothing with my life. My parents ended up splitting after 30 years of marriage due to this uncontrollable behavior of mine. The blessing of this divorce, though, caused my mom to move from Riverside County to San Diego County. I moved with my mom. I got clean for a short amount of time and started to thrive. I started to attend a pop-up college in Mission Valley, San Diego in 2012 named Mueller College, which no longer exists. I got straight A's and was about to receive my certification to be an alcohol and drug counselor when the school suddenly shut down. It shut down. I was left with $15,000 of debt, which also left me in relapse mode. But I didn't give up. I was admitted to Jean McAllister's Kiva Learning Center for Women and Children. I completed 6 months of inpatient treatment. I got my daughter back while there in Lemon Grove and got a job to pay off my debt. I also attended outpatient services. I maintained sobriety, qualified for a low-income apartment, and met my future husband. We got engaged and moved to Santa Barbara, and now we both go to school in this city. After a long, tiring road down a dark path, I was finally able to see that light at the end of the tunnel. I just didn't know how long it would take me to get here. Today, at 34 years old, I have a 3.4 GPA, and I'm also helping other formerly incarcerated people access higher education through a program called Underground Scholars Santa Barbara. It may have taken me a while to accomplish my goals, but I have arrived. Thank you for hearing my article and my poem. As I mentioned, this wasn't an easy road. It did take me a while to get here, but as evidence, it was also hindered by the systems that were put in place to help us, but they actually ended up hurting a lot of us in that process. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people have been affected by the pharmaceutical company. I think that we've addressed this issue too far into the epidemic. We should have addressed it way further before when it started to happen, and especially when it started to affect children first. And also the school that I mentioned, once I did start getting clean and I was ready to go back for my education, you know, I believed in the school that said they were going to give me a certification and graduate in 2 years. I ended up getting a graduation, but as I mentioned, the certification was locked out before I could take my test. So I aspired to be something, and here I am. I'm going to go do it the right way now. I'm at City College and about to get my AA to transfer. And so my message is just don't give up. You know, these are very tough block barriers that are put in place, and it's a firm grip that they have. But as long as we keep coming stronger and getting more education and getting more knowledge, we'll be able to break these barriers and form our own kind of understanding for our own people. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really powerful. And, you know, it's creativity and revolt. That's the theme this year with the American Studies Association, you know, and so we're using creativity and showcasing revolt. And so within our presentations, we're using our stories of resilience, of overcoming drug addiction and recidivism through higher education, creating a new legacy of survival. And as you could see with my partner, Lissandra's presentation, she had to overcome and survive so much different obstacles. And it was the systems that are in place that were putting these obstacles and using her as a pawn and a Ponzi scheme to make profit. We have to keep it real here. They're all about making profits off of us, and they use us on a consistent basis to make these profits. And through our protests, we're creating and confronting the dehumanization. We're creating a revolt in confronting the dehumanization we faced in our journeys through a system that has oppressed us and left us broken with no way to return to lead a successful life. And so we've been forced to come together as a community and stand up and create our own successful routes, our own programs, our own rehabilitation amongst each other, where we're uplifting each other so that we don't have to suffer what these systems have in place today. The recidivism factories that exist inside our communities that are using us for profit, that are using us as numbers, and that are dehumanizing us and breaking us down way more than we were when we went into these systems. And so we've come together and created the Underground Scholars program. And we're reclaiming our stories from those who have been telling it through research. We're showing up now to these universities and we're becoming the researchers into our own reality so that we can address the things that are in existence in our communities that are using us for profits, and we can address and we can go after the redress for our communities, for our population, the formerly incarcerated, the ones who've been, stuck in addiction, the ones who've been looking for that upward mobility that has never existed in our communities. Why has it not existed? Because they want to use us for profits. And so we're directly involved with our communities, and we share our journey through this addiction, through this incarceration, through this rehabilitation, through losing our children to social services and being labeled as drug addicts, gang members, and unfit parents, showcasing how this degradation has been the foundation to creating these American systems in place that have been exploiting the marginalized communities as a way to extract billions of dollars in tax revenue, all under the pretense of serving and protecting us. As you can see, our communities are not protected by these systems. These systems continue to evolve in profit margins, and we continue to be pushed, oppressed, and continue to be, at the lower end of the totem pole, stuck and driven into poverty to the point when you drive down your streets in the United States of America, all you see is houseless individuals in tents on sidewalks. And it's one of the richest countries in the world. One voice that has been excluded and not heard is our voice. The voice of the formerly incarcerated, the voice of the former drug addict, the voice of the gang member. It's time we come together and unite and reclaim our stories. So today I'm gonna go through one of my poems I wrote in the 2013 prisoner hunger strikes. And I'm gonna read my story called Raising My Children from a Prison Phone. That is in the book. You can actually get it on Amazon, called Reclaiming Our Stories too. And so today, and I'll put out the links and stuff. I don't know if you can see the book right here, but it's Reclaiming Our Stories too, kind of. Yeah, there you go. So this book has it's an anthology. It has a bunch of different people from the community who went through this stuff, and we're reclaiming our stories, and we're coming together, and we're not going to be used anymore. We're tired of being used by these systems for profit. We're tired of being a number. That's all we are, is a number to these systems, and we're not going to stand by and let it go on. Creativity and revolt. We're revolting against this system in place that's been using us for profit, that's been using us for political gains. And so we're not standing by anymore. Ambitions to live in the 2013 prisoner hunger strikes. I was in New Folsom State Prison when I wrote this. As I sit here and starve, ready to die, I reflect on my life. Ambitions and goals is something I never used to know. I was lost and blinded in this capitalist world. Misunderstood, confused, battered, and abused. I felt so used and alone, wishing I had a happy home. I was a poor kid, teaching myself how to live within these cruel conditions that pushed me to have negative ambitions. I was slipping in the darkness, which was the norm, trying anything and everything to beat this brutal storm. A hopeless young man stuck inside this American quicksand. They call it a dream. My answer to those that ask is I'm doing my thing. At this point, I am up in the dope game, trying to maintain and sustain a life. And then I was kidnapped by the meth pipe. This was a wild roller coaster ride, super high, feeling like King Kong. At this time, everything went wrong. I had a ski mask and a gun. I started robbing people, thinking it was fun, trying to numb the pain I felt inside. I used drugs heavy to hide. I'm lucky I didn't die. Now I'm starving myself, trying to take my own life. So mine and your children don't have to suffer this disgusting caged life. As I sit and rot away, paying my debt to society is what they say. Rehabilitation is so fake. Instead, a product of my environment is what I became. This is the reality on these streets and the penitentiaries. It's the American disease, the capitalist dreams, turning all the marginalized into a commodity. Blaming the drug-infested neighborhoods for everything. I'm in New Folsom State Prison this very day, locked away in this overcrowded, disgusting place they call corrections and rehabilitation, faking society out because that's not what this place is truly about. On a more positive note, I have a newfound hope. I gave up using dope, got very disciplined by true homies who spoke from the heart, became a sureño soldado, and got a new start in life. They make us out to be vicious animals, which isn't right. As I starve and I'm willing to die so mine and your children can go to college in their life, but they still make me out to be some savage. Now you know the truth. I got 2 years left and then I paid my dues. If I make it through alive and don't die, a total of 7 years in this dark hole, building myself up, mind, body, and soul. My ultimate goal is to let every kid know that this isn't the right way to go. Remain strong, learn right from wrong, keep your head up high and take pride and live a productive life. Dream big until the day you die and keep your ambitions and goals in sight. If I live past this hunger strike, I vow to fight for your human rights until the day that I die. So I wrote that during the 2013 prisoner hunger strikes. And we starved ourselves for 33 days in New Folsom State Prison. The Short Corridor Collective came together in the Pelican Bay segregated housing units. And they all came together and they created the agreement to end all hostilities. And afterwards, this agreement went across the whole entire prison complex. And all of us on the main line, general population line, we all came together in solidarity. And we felt that it was best that we all starved and you know, a lot of people ended up dying in this and not let the next generation of children from our community suffer the disgusting punitive system that's in place. And so we all came together in solidarity and we revolted. And I wrote that during that. And so, you know, they co-opted that Short Corridor Collective movement and they made this prison reform movement. It's time to quit reforming. We need to abolish these systems that are in place. They continuously use us for profit gains. And there was a couple programs that came out during the Short Corridor Collective's movement, and the Short Corridor Collective is still going today, and it's still going strong. and all the reforms that the state's trying to make to simmer down this revolutionary movement, it's not simmering us down. We are coming back stronger, and we're not going to stand by anymore and be used for profits. In California, just in this state, they spend $15.7 billion on the Department of Corruption, which they call corrections. $15.7 billion. You drive down these streets, just like I said before, all you see is houseless individuals living on sidewalks in tents, living on the side of the freeways. It's insane. It's disgusting. It's horrible that we spend $15.7 billion on a system that houses 95,000 people currently. $15.7 billion to house 95,000 people that come from marginalized communities. And so what I'm trying to emphasize is that this is wasteful spending of our tax revenue. And as a community, we got to come together and take this back. We got to abolish this system, because this system's doing nothing to serve and protect any of us. It's harming us. It's causing mental health issues to arise in individuals that go inside. Prison traumatic stress disorder. People are coming home with PTSD, prison traumatic stress disorder. They're coming home addicted to hardcore street drugs that are prevalent in these systems, because these systems depend on violence in order to legitimize the extraction of $15.7 billion. And so we can no longer stand by and be pawns in this Ponzi scheme they call the Department of Corrections, which we call the Department of Corruption. It's time that we come together as one, as a community, and we see that we're better off without these systems that are in place, and we unite and we shut them down. We have to shut them down. And so I'm going to read a story that I wrote, and which was published in the book called Reclaiming Our Stories Too. This story, it really talks to how I had to raise my children for the first 7 years of their life through a prison phone. And that's the reality of folks who are incarcerated. And that's what the state has designed. The state has designed a way to divide and conquer us, to separate us from our families, in order for our families to not experience upward mobility, so that they can be used as laborers, as workers in the corporations of America. And that's what they're doing. They've isolated our families. They've ripped the leadership away from our families. They've degraded us and put us in a category where we got to check the box as felons. And when we come home, we can't do nothing to uplift our families. We can't do nothing to inspire our families and keep our families together. Instead, they've broken up our families. And here we are today, dealing with 2.9 million people incarcerated in the country that celebrates freedom the most. 2.9 million people incarcerated from marginalized communities. We're driven deep in poverty. 99% of us are deep in poverty, and there's only 1% that's at the top. So we're always focused on religion, gender, race, but we're never focused on class. And there's a huge class of people who are deep in poverty in the entire world. And this class of people is pinned against each other and fighting and competing against each other. But what we need to see is that we need to quit competing against each other, and we need to look at the top. We need to look at the rich ruling elites who are profiting off of our misery. And we need to come together and we need to fight back. We need to dismantle, and we need to revolt. And within this revolt, we need to realize that we need to dismantle what the rich ruling elites have put together here. We need to dismantle it. We need to dismantle it so the next generation doesn't have to suffer the miseries that we're suffering today. And we need to redistribute this wealth. back to the communities where it belongs. Raising my children from a prison phone. Raising my children from a prison phone. I dedicate this story to all the mothers and fathers who are incarcerated and raising their children through a prison phone. I raised my son and daughter through a prison phone. I would call them loyally every weekend while they were at my mother's house. I remember when my daughter was 4 years old, she said over the phone, "Dad, I want to have a picnic with you in the park." I almost broke down and cried. It was so painful to hear my little princess want to share a special moment with me in the park. I promised her I would be home soon to have that picnic in the park. My first son, Riley Richie Rising, was born 2 months after I went to prison. I remember my mom brought him down to visit me from Montana to Blythe, California, where I was incarcerated in Ironwood State Prison. She spent a bunch of money on an airplane ticket and a hotel. But the day before her visit, an incarcerated individual ended up beating up a correctional officer on the yard, and the whole prison was put on lockdown. I was so heartbroken. I remember how dark I got after that day. I had a sense of anger, and this manifested into a violent mind. I raised my son and daughter through pictures in the mail and through the state phone. That state phone, they always interrupted our beautiful talks, reminding my beautiful children and myself that I was a slave in prison. "You are talking to an inmate in the California Correction Center. This call is being monitored and recorded." This is how I had to raise my kids for the most precious moments in their lives, when they needed their father the most. That is how it was. I remember hearing my son say "Dad" for the first time over the prison phone. I remember when I bought a secret cell phone. It costed $1,200, and it was just a little flip phone. And the things I had to do to keep this phone were insane. I had to dig a hole in my concrete wall, which I could have gotten busted for trying to escape, and they could have gave me escape charges. And I had to use a piece of metal to do it, which could have got me more time, and because they could have said it was a manufactured weapon. And before every yard, I would have to put it back into that little hole and seal it back with state issued toothpaste powder with the concrete I had dug out of the wall. I had this phone for 4 months and bonded with my children all the time. I'll never forget the day I lost it. The correctional officers came up to my door, cuff up, Rising, and they cuffed me and my cellie up and put us in the shower next to our cell and locked us in. My heart was beating fast because I knew that that was the end of my cell phone. I remember when they found it, they started to cheer. "Yes, we got it." My heart sunk. Then they came back to put us in our cell, and I asked him, "Hey, correctional officer, why'd you search my cell in the first place?" "One of your homies snitched on you," he responded. "What's up? Tell me who it is," I asked him. "You know I can't do that, Mr. Rising." When me and my homie got back to the cell, it was demolished. It looked like a hurricane had hit our entire cell. Everything was upside down. Top ramen soups, coffee and beans that we buy from the store, where all of us go to store that are incarcerated. It was all over the floor. As we started to work on putting our cell back together, the CO came to our door. "Rising, cuff up. We're taking you to the segregated housing unit, known as the Hole." I was in the Hole for conspiracy to deal drugs. It was isolated, dark, very alone, very quiet. Just you and your thoughts. And my thoughts were, who was it? Who snitched on me? One of my homies said I was the main drug dealer of the block, which was a lie. I sat in the hole for 30 days until they released me back in the yard. Alone, angry, pissed, broken, and feeling betrayed. I remember when they let me back out to the yard. They put me in the same cell with my cellie, which was cool. I told them what had happened, why they took me. I showed them my paperwork. After that, I didn't trust anybody. Who could I trust? Someone was looking me in my eyes and then turned around and was telling these correctional officers a bunch of lies behind my back. I remember when I got to talk to my kids for the first time after being in the hole. It felt amazing to talk to them and hear their voices. It soothed my mind and reminded me that I was going home someday soon. But that lady came in. You were talking to an inmate in a California correctional facility. This call is being monitored and recorded. You were talking to an inmate in a California correctional facility. This call is being monitored and recorded. I had to hear that recording 5 times in a 15-minute phone call. How am I supposed to raise my children like this? What is this teaching them? Is this really what it's supposed to be about? I raised my kids on this phone until they released me 7 years later. I had never, ever seen my son because the one time my mom made all the effort to bring him to me, I was on lockdown. You have 60 seconds remaining on this recorded phone call. Then I got out. The gates opened up at New Folsom State Prison, and I walked out of the devil's playground. I didn't get to see my kids right away. We were still talking over the phone and through video chats, but there was no recording. Then the day finally arrived. I got to go meet my kids for the first time in my son's life. And my daughter hadn't seen me since she was 1.5 years old. This day was amazing for them and myself. I went to their school, met their teachers, and did a parent-teacher conference. For the first time in their life, I got to do what a father should do, and that's be involved in their life. After I met their teachers, I finally got to meet my kids. I remember my son walked in the door. He looked at everyone in the room, and as soon as his eyes locked into my soul, he screamed loud and proud, "Daddy!" He ran at full speed and jumped into my arms, pulled me to the ground, and we both started to cry. This was the first time I had ever seen my son in person. As I looked him in his eyes and studied his features, I said, "You look just like me." He said, "Yeah," and couldn't stop looking at me. And then we hugged, and I gave my son a kiss for the first time in his life. This very moment changed me as a person forever. Now it was time to go meet my daughter. They said, "Let's call her to the office." She came walking down the hallway, and her brother said, "We got a surprise for you." As soon as she looked me in my eyes, my heart skipped a beat. She threw down her backpack and ran at full speed, yelling at the top of her lungs, "Daddy!" It had been 7 years since I had seen her. Then she had been a little baby walking around. Now she was grown and beautiful. Her brother said, "Come on, cry." But she was so strong, and we started our journey. I was now able to call and talk to my children all the time. I got to bond with them better and call them all day. This was a huge part to our relationship, and I was never interrupted ever again by that disrespectful, degrading recording, reminding me and my children that I was a slave in the California Department of Corrections. What kind of message are they sending to our children? You are talking to an inmate in the California Correction Center. This call is being monitored and recorded. So I wrote that through a program that the pillars of the community created in San Diego called Reclaiming Our Stories. And it, you know, really it helped me heal. It helped me, you know, understand, you know, that I'm a human being, you know, and yeah, I made some mistakes, but man, to treat my children that way, to lock us away and not help us transition back into our communities, to not uplift us while we're sitting in these prison industrial complexes like commodities, you know, where they're extracting $84,000 a year for just one of us to be incarcerated in the state of California. I mean, and then, you know, they opened up the gates to this devil's playground that they're running and operating. It's they're the evil ones, you know, and they make us out to be the evil ones. No. And so I got out in 2015, August 12th, and 3 months before I got out, I met Danny Murillo via a secret cell phone. And I talked to him, and he told me about the Underground Scholars program at Berkeley. And he told me, you can go to Berkeley. I was like, I can go to Berkeley? Like, you know, you come from a marginalized community where you're told you can't afford college. College is for the rich people. And so, you know, all our lives, you know, coming up, we think we can't make it to college. We can't go to college. And so, you know, him telling me that I could go to college empowered me. And at this point, after the 2013 hunger strikes, they gave us college courses with books. So the books now were free. Before, they had college courses and they were charging like $500 a book. And we couldn't even get the books. So nobody took college courses, but they were saying, oh, yes, we're giving them rehabilitative services. We're giving them college courses, but nobody could take them because nobody had the funding, because we all came from poverty to buy the books. And, you know, when I got out, I remember there was books at the bookstore that were like, you know, $130, you know, but inside prison, they were charging $500 to $800 for that same exact book. And so, you know, for the first time, they said, oh, you can get the book. So I signed up for college because I was tired of watching Jerry Springer reruns, Cops reruns, Maury reruns, and all these different TV shows that I call it crap TV. They're trying to pump negative messages into our mind so that we have a negative outlook on everything around us. And so we're being conditioned to have these negative thoughts and these negative outlooks in order to come out and do negative things. And so I wanted to steer away from that. And I remember the first two courses I took were Pharmacology of Drugs of Abuse and College Success. Pharmacology of Drugs of Abuse, I did 13 research papers on all the drugs I used in my life. And I'm happy to say after that course, I'll never use drugs ever again. And College Success not only taught me how to be an amazing student in school, but it taught me how to be an amazing student in life. And I fell in love with knowledge and education. And so I had 47 units, and I started studying when I got out at San Diego City College. And I remember before I got out, all my homies were like, hey, Flacco, what you gonna do when you get out? I was like, oh man, I'm going to Berkeley and I'm gonna be Dr. Flacco. After I talked to Danny Murillo, that's all I was telling everyone. Everyone was laughing. Yeah, right, homie. What you gonna do at Berkeley? And I was like, I'm going to Berkeley. I'm gonna be Dr. Flacco. And I'm happy to say that I just applied for grad school, and I'm on my way to my PhD program pretty soon here to become Dr. Flacco, so that I can teach sociology classes from the lens of a formerly incarcerated professor, uplifting individuals' minds to see that we need to critically analyze the prison industrial complex that's in place, and we need to dismantle it. It's doing nothing but extracting billions upon billions of dollars away from our communities into bank accounts through contract schemes that are uplifting the rich ruling elites. So it's a double profit scheme. I mean, even the private prison industrial complex, CEA, CCA, whatever they change their names to try to hide themselves from the spotlight that's on them, they're on our stock market. So you can literally invest from Japan in the prison industrial complex of the United States of America, through CCA, the Corrections Corporation of America, and it's worth billions of dollars on our stock market and has multiple investors on the stock that are invested in it from around the entire world. So you can literally invest in locking up people in America from marginalized communities. And so we're standing together now. We've come together and we created a program called the Underground Scholars out of Berkeley, the Berkeley Underground Scholars. And so I'm going to unpack that program with y'all. And so we've just got some a little bit of funding. Like the UC doesn't even fund us. The state doesn't even fund us. And so we've gotten a little bit of funding from some outside foundations, and we're now expanding across the entire UC. And the Underground Scholars is building the prison to university pipeline. And so we, you know, a little bit about the Underground Scholars is was started in 2013 by formerly incarcerated and system impacted students at UC Berkeley. As the Underground Scholars Initiative, a student organization. Berkeley Underground Scholars BUS, the program, was established by USI in 2017. Our goal is to increase access to higher education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students and their families. We need to become the researchers. For far too long, historically, the researchers that have been doing this ethnographic research and this qualitative research and collecting this data about us, they haven't came from the backgrounds that we've come from. They're viewing us through a lens of an outsider. And that's actually, extracting data that really can't be upheld correctly. And so now it's us coming in with the lived experience, with a lens that has that lived experience, that's able to critique the systems in a way with that experience at the forefront of the critique. And so that's what we're designing here. We're creating researchers with that lived experience so that they can go in and they can get access to these marginalized groups that, you know, really don't like talking to researchers, really don't like being involved in this type of gathering of data. And so they actually, you know, move a different direction away from, you know, researchers that are trying to collect this data, because historically it's been used against them to continue to oppress them. And so, yeah, so that's what we're up to. So as you can see here in the state of California, we're the worst state in the nation. We spend 6 times more on prisoners than we do students. And that's coming out of one report. You could see the budget for the Department of Corruption here in the state of California. Man, it's gone up billions upon billions. And when Governor Brown left, he slapped him another $10 billion. So on his way out of office, he gave him another $10 billion to oppress and extract marginalized people from our communities and mentally and physically and emotionally abuse them in a punitive system that's doing nothing to uplift them. And he gave it to them under the pretense of, oh, they're creating rehabilitative services. They ain't doing none of that. And so as you can see, since 1980, California has built 22 prisons since 1980 and 1 university. They've built these prisons and they've created policies like the gang injunctions, the gang enhancements, the gun enhancements, the tough on crime bills that came down from Reagan and the fake war on drugs that was declared by Nixon to go after our community members and these, you know, marginalized sectors of our cities. And they've used them to fill these prison cells up and extract these billions away from our communities. All the while they're shipping all of these factories and all these jobs that were, you know, for us overseas for more profit margins. So it's a double profit scheme. They're sucking the $15.7 billion of tax revenue away from our communities that could actually develop upward mobility for those who are entrenched in poverty. And then they're making profits overseas using labor overseas that they pay pennies to, and getting large profit margins off of cheap labor overseas. And the disgusting conditions that they have to bear overseas is just like in these factories overseas is the same disgusting conditions we are bearing in the prison industrial complexes of the United States of America. So we are off of 3 pillars. 3 pillars is what the Underground Scholars is off of: recruitment, retention, and advocacy. And so recruitment, we provide academic advising and UC application support to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students. We hire and train college students through our community college students through our ambassadors program. And so you got to meet our ambassador, who's my partner, Lysandra Barrera Rising. She's an ambassador at Santa Barbara City College, and she works on identifying formerly incarcerated students. And she helps them realize, just like Danny did for me, that they can go to the UC. It doesn't have to stop at the community college. And so she identifies those individuals and works with them, helps them with their applications, gets them connected to the Underground Scholars Network. And so our ambassadors program is an amazing program. And you know what? They get a stipend to do all this. They're not doing this for free. So we actually give them a stipend. We give them funding to do this work at their community college. And we also give them workshops. And within these workshops, they learn leadership development skills. They learn professional development. They learn how to talk to administration. They learn how to develop a student organization on their campus for formerly incarcerated. They learn how to do public speaking. So we train the formerly incarcerated students how to become leaders in the social justice movement. Through retention, our retention program provides formerly incarcerated students spaces to meet and study, tutoring, peer mentoring, academic and financial aid advising, leadership development, advocacy, and student employment. We partner with many campus departments to ensure student retention. We have an amazing faculty advisory board here at the University of California, Santa Barbara, but we don't have any space yet. You know, it's a relatively new program here, and honestly, it's really messed up because we haven't been able to be students. We've been having to fight every freaking day for space. We've been having to fight every freaking day for resources. We've been having to fight and show up and do all these presentations and go in and schmooze all these administrators, and it's not cool because I'm in my undergrad and I'm unable to be a student. I haven't been able to be a student. It's been constant work since the day I stepped on this campus, and I'm talking hard work, dedication that I'm not being paid for, you know, that I'm not, it's coming straight from the heart. And this work it's because it's not about us today. It's about everyone that's going to come tomorrow. It's about all the formerly incarcerated students that are coming tomorrow. It's our duty to set these campuses up for them. And that's what we're doing. Advocacy. We advocate for currently and formerly incarcerated students and their families. In addition to individual advocacy for students on campus and on parole and probation, we engage in local, state, and national policy advocacy to remove barriers and create opportunities for currently and formerly incarcerated people. We train formerly incarcerated and system impacted students to be policy advocates in our year-long policy institute. That's out of Berkeley. This is expanding across the state of California in the UC system. So our program is innovative, adaptive, holistic, and driven by student experience. So through recruitment, we have the ambassadors program, which I unpacked with you, and you got to meet one of our amazing ambassadors that's doing amazing work at Santa Barbara City College. And Santa Barbara City College has a program over there, but they don't have a student-led organization. And unfortunately, it needs to be those who come from this demographic and who are formerly incarcerated at the forefront of this work. Cross enrollment program. So we're currently in talking stages, you know, and it seems like it's just always got to talk before any action gets done by these administrations in these universities. And we're trying to develop a cross enrollment program, but Berkeley's been really successful at creating this cross enrollment program. And so what they do is they've designed a couple classes at Berkeley where they have students from the local community colleges, and they've also opened it up for statewide because unfortunately, Berkeley Underground Scholars has been the only program that works with formerly incarcerated students and uplifts them. And it's also ran by system impacted and formerly incarcerated students, and they help them cross enroll into these classes so they can familiarize themselves with Berkeley classes before they even get there. So we got the Incarcerated Scholars program. We're all about working with the incarcerated individuals. We're developing the prison to university pipeline. So it's important to get inside behind the wall. If it wasn't for Danny meeting me 3 months before I got out, I wouldn't be right here having this conversation with all of you today. So we're very, very, very dedicated to our Incarcerated Scholars program. UC Irvine just created the bachelor's degree program that they're going to start teaching classes next fall. So we're trying to become the professors, the formerly incarcerated professors, so that we can go access, you know, our incarcerated scholars, and we can, you know, uplift their minds with political education classes. And we can give them the trainings that we're giving each other out here in these university settings. And so when they do come home, they come home with a whole skill set, and they've transferred their skills from the streets to this skill set. Because we're multifaceted diamond. And we're multifaceted. We come from the streets. And so, you know, we have a skill set that a lot of folks that haven't lived the experiences that we've lived have. And so we're a multifaceted jewel. So these skill sets are transferable skills, and we're transferring them into the universities. And we're using our skill sets, and we're developing our programs, and we're uplifting each other. And then we got the transfer program. Berkeley helped me transfer. I got accepted. I had a 3.7 grade point average. I got accepted to Berkeley. I got accepted to UC Irvine. I got accepted to USD, gave me the Circle of Excellence Scholarship, which was a full ride scholarship, $57,000 in tuition for 3 years. And then UCSB accepted me. The reason why I chose UCSB is because UCSB had nothing for formerly incarcerated individuals, and one of the highest recidivism rates in this state is this central area. Santa Barbara County has one of the highest recidivism rates. They turn people around like crazy back up to prison. They reincarcerate people like crazy here. And I felt like we have to go in and open these universities up to formerly incarcerated individuals in order to help them create upward mobility for themselves. And we got to help them every step of the way. So I came in here and I started the Underground Scholars Santa Barbara organized student-led organization with Gilbert Murillo. And then now, we started in 2019. Now we have the Gaucho Underground Scholars program. So now we're a full program, and I'm the Gaucho Underground Scholars program coordinator. And we have a couple other, we have the recruitment coordinator and the retention coordinator. And so, and it was just off a little bit of funding that Berkeley shared with us. Still to this day, the University of California, Santa Barbara hasn't even invested in us. So we got advocacy for students, state policy and budget advocacy here in the state of California since the short corridor collectives. And I give them all the credit. The credit is due to the short corridor collective. They get all the credit for all this. I would have never been able to go to college if we didn't do the hunger strikes. We would have never got our books and got them for free if it wasn't for the hunger strikes. And we wouldn't see all this juvenile laws being changed. We wouldn't see all these policies being changed if it wasn't for the short corridor collective. So hands down, the leadership I'm grateful for is the short corridor collective's leadership and Pelican Bay segregated housing units. Todd Ashker, multiple people that were, in the Pelican Bay segregated housing units that started this movement, this prisoner solidarity movement that has now changed policies where people are coming home now that were incarcerated as juveniles off life sentences, where they're shutting down the juvenile system. Finally, this system is being exposed for all the atrocities that it's done to this community in California. And so, all hands down goes to the short corridor collective. And so you're seeing policy after policy being changed. And one big one is the gang injunctions and the gang enhancements that were used to insert these individuals, these men in the segregated housing units for 34, 37 years. They were stuffed in these cells 23 hours a day, 23 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day for months. No contact, nothing. These individuals, they're the reason why we're in college. They're the reason why all these policies are being changed, not because the state has had a change of heart. Nah, the state hasn't had no change of heart whatsoever. They're mad they have to do this. And so now it's time for us to take it to the next level. If we could come together in solidarity and abolish the segregated housing units of California, we can come together and abolish this whole entire system. Financial support, retention, tutoring, and advising. I mean, we got a really amazing program. It's doing amazing work. Strengths, we got broad reach. We have a president at almost every UC campus and many community colleges. We meet our scholars where they're at. That's important. A lot of these pop-up programs for formerly incarcerated, they're not meeting the scholars where they're at. They're extracting, millions upon millions of dollars under the pretense of, we're serving formerly incarcerated students, and they're not. They're getting their $60,000 to $120,000 annual director positions. I was looking at the programs that are in the community college, and there's not too many formerly incarcerated directors. That's a problem. That's problematic. It needs to be formerly incarcerated individuals at the forefront of this work. That's what's making the impact. And that's what Berkeley Underground Scholars is showing. That's what Project Rebound is showing. And so, the directors of Project Rebounds, all formerly incarcerated. They got a few $1 million from the state, and so we're meeting them in jails, and we're meeting them in the prisons. We're meeting them in the community colleges, and the communities most impacted by incarceration. Another program that we just actually went and did was developed in prison by an incarcerated individual named Philip Dorsett. He was one of the organizers of it, called The Collective, bringing 29 street organizations that have been labeled by the state as gangs together, that have been divided by the state and turned against each other and have been warring in the streets of LA, all for the gains of the prison industrial complex. And so we brought them together and we're giving them political education classes, and they're resolving their conflicts, and they're seeing that, one thing that Philip Dorsett told me in 2020, he said, the equality of suffering equals solidarity, equals action, equals revolution. So we have to see that we're all equally suffering. Once we see that, we're going to come together in solidarity. And once we come together in solidarity, we're going to create action, and then we're going to revolt. Strong model, recruitment, retention, and advocacy with a focus on academic excellence, professional development, and healing. Healing is the key component. Those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. Let me say that one more time. Those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. So the program that Philip has had a hand in organizing, called The Collective, bringing these neighborhoods together, these are all individuals that are closest to the problem. And you know what? They're creating the solution. And you know what? They're doing it with no money. And we get billions of dollars for these gang units. We get billions of dollars for this Department of Corrections that's doing nothing to correct shit. Straight up. We're revolting today. We're revolting. Impacted leaders, the leadership of our program are all people who are directly impacted by the issues we work on. That's the key to success, people. That's the key right there. Reputation. We do have an amazing, strong reputation for authenticity and success among our students and our allies. Weaknesses. Funding incapacity. We get no financial support from the UC, insufficient financial support from the state. Statewide program capacity, currently here at Gaucho Underground Scholars program at UCSB, we got one part-time coordinator, which is me, and 2 work study staff. So, we do have a director up at Berkeley, but man, she's overwhelmed. Hands down, we are very grateful for Azadeh Zarabi's leadership. She's taken us to a level we would have never gotten to. And she's worked her heart out. I'm talking 24 hours a day. That amazing woman is working, and her leadership has gotten us to where we are today, having programs now across the UC, and she continues to lead us, and we're so grateful for her leadership. Data and evaluation. We are in the process of implementing tools to better capture our program's impact data. And we are developing evaluation tools and practices to continue improving our processes and programs. Legal and logistical challenges. Many of our students are still navigating open cases, parole, probation, court supervision. And I'll tell you what, parole, they don't want us going to college. They frown on college. You know what I'm saying? Like they want us in the streets. They want us out there so that they can catch us up and send us right back to prison. And so it's got to be us, the formerly incarcerated. And there's a program that I've been working on behind the scenes called the Formerly Incarcerated Life Coaching Program, where us formerly incarcerated are giving each other the hand up. We're giving each other the hand up so that we can create upward mobility together. Parole and probation doesn't give no hand up, and they don't even give a goddamn hand out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's pulling teeth to get like a $40 gift card to Target. You know what I'm saying? They give us $200 and tell us good luck as we walk out of the prison industrial complex of California. It's disgusting. I want parole and probation gone. And you know what? Here, let me expose them real quick. We're revolting today. Let me expose them. Parole and probation sends people to Mexico who were undocumented and incarcerated in the prison industrial complex, they deport them back to Mexico and keep them on parole. Yeah, I'm writing a paper on that right now. I'm doing a bunch of research on how they're extracting our tax revenue in the state of California and keeping hundreds of formerly incarcerated deportees that are in Mexico, El Salvador, even overseas, on parole for 5 years, keeping them on their caseloads and extracting our tax revenue. Come on, people, we gotta wake up and see this is a Ponzi scheme. This is they are manipulating us and using us for profit. Many students still navigating these cases without any adequate legal and mental health support. Man, this is our other ambassador. This is Arturo Chich Regosa. Man, we're so proud of him. He's up at Allen Hancock Community College doing amazing work. Created Biggie, which is a student-led organization called Beyond Incarceration Greater Education. And man, Cheech has been doing amazing work uplifting formerly incarcerated and giving them upward mobility. And so, man, I want to give him a shout out. So opportunities, expansion. Gus is working with formerly incarcerated students on every UC campus, developing a plan for statewide expansion. Recruitment, strengthen statewide mentorship and recruitment of currently and formerly incarcerated students through growing the ambassador program and incarcerated scholars program. Retention, remove barriers and create more support and opportunities for formerly incarcerated UC students around academic excellence, professional development, employment, housing, and healing. Like I said, healing is important, and it's us. We got to heal each other. Historically, they've been using us, acting like they're trying to heal us, but they ain't healing us. They're surveilling and monitoring us and waiting for any little slip up to lock us back up. Advocacy, strengthen Policy Institute to develop student skills in policy research and advocacy. The students in the policy cohort at Berkeley will advocate for local and state policies. There is also a need for individual advocacy for students. And there you have it, folks. The Underground Scholars, building the prison to university pipeline. My name's Ryan Flacco Rising. I'm the Gaucho Underground Scholars coordinator. There goes my email. You can get me at Gaucho Underground Scholars at gmail.com. And my final thoughts. I gave you all a lot today. Lysandra gave you a lot too, my partner. And my final thoughts is this. We need to get in the business of building each other up instead of breaking each other down for profit. All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us today in our session. And keep a lookout for us. Look us up. You can look me up, Ryan Flacco Rising. Look at all my articles on Google. You could look up Lysandra Barrera Rising, all her articles and her ambassador work. If you'd like to get in contact with us. It's time to unite. We're all siloed and kept away from each other by design. They don't want us together. And so if we're going to creatively revolt, we got to come together and unite, you know. And I say this to you all, you can't spell community without unity. So let's unite and revolt together.